A few blocks around the corner from the White House. This is where they stayed overnight. They'll go to the church service there with J.D. Vance, both wives, of course, in attendance. And then the day will continue from there. There's a tea set, and then there is the noon swearing in, of course. A very busy day. Just a few minutes behind schedule. That was all around 8 o'clock, 8:22, obviously now. We will let you know when things happen and show it to you live as they do. Meantime, on his first day back in the Oval Office, Trump is expected to sign a flurry of executive orders, possibly 200 or so, including suspending security clearances for 51 intel officials, some who wrote a letter claiming reports tied to Hunter Biden's laptop had the classic earmarks of Russian disinformation ahead of the 2020 election. Since then, federal authorities have confirmed the laptop was in fact authentic. At the same time, FBI Director Christopher Wray officially stepping down over the weekend on Saturday. He released a public farewell message in which he warned about the dangers America faces, identifying China as, quote, the defining threat of our generation. Trump has nominated Kash Patel to head that agency. Right now, his confirmation hearing has not been scheduled. We are following the latest from Washington this morning right here at the live desk.
For the first time in 40 years, because of those freezing temperatures, the ceremony will be held inside the Capitol Rotunda. The National News Desk's John Gonzalez joining us live there. Good morning to you. I know it's gotten a little bit busier. There's probably more security in the area.
Yeah, the sub-freezing. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It is a flurry of activity. As you can imagine, what a busy weekend here on Capitol Hill. And it is the sub-freezing temperatures here in Washington, basically moving everything inside. Take a look at this video. These are the crews that are essentially building an alternate stage and platform inside the Capitol Rotunda. The historic Grand Room just concluded the Jimmy Carter Line in State, and now this. But unlike that event, this is not going to be open to the public. Few visitors will be inside. President Joe Biden, members of Congress, and other dignitaries. The inauguration ceremony will begin with a musical prelude performed by the University of Nebraska-Lincoln Combined Choirs and the president's own U.S. Marine Band. Country star Carrie Underwood, joined by the Armed Forces Choir and the U.S. Naval Academy Glee Club, will perform America the Beautiful. Cardinal Timothy Dolan, the Archbishop of New York, and Reverend Franklin Graham will deliver the invocation, and then the Supreme Court justices will administer the presidential oaths and the vice presidential oaths. Kavanaugh will take care of the vice presidential oath, followed by Chief Justice John Roberts in the afternoon today. And again, the first time in 40 years, this swearing-in ceremony is not on the steps of the U.S. Capitol, outside. Reporting live, John Gonzalez for the National Desk, America's News Now.
John, thank you so much. Stay with us for live continuing coverage of the presidential inauguration. We're going to have the latest from Capitol Hill as Donald Trump prepares to be sworn in as the 47th president, including Trump's schedule of events. First, though, here's a look at America's news and weather where you live.
I'm meteorologist Ryan Munn. Let's get a look at the Northeast as we head through the daytime on Monday. That storm is moving out of here. The sunshine has returned. However, it is going to be very, very cold all throughout the Northeast as we head through the day on Monday. And this will continue not only into Monday, but Tuesday, even into the middle of the work week as well. We are talking temperatures that are going to be very, very cold throughout the region, but mainly dry. High temperatures today.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. We are now drying out, but a very Arctic air mass is setting in. This is going to be brutally cold over the next few days. High pressure is going to push overhead, so we're going to stay mostly dry, except for maybe some light snow showers. It's extremely cold. We're talking about single digits in the mountains, teens down closer towards the lowlands, and we'll still be that cold coming into Tuesday as well.
I'm meteorologist Vetus Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs for the day. Chilly temperatures. Look at Nashville, only 23 degrees. 32 Birmingham, 35 Raleigh, looking at 47 Jacksonville, Tampa about 55 degrees. We have a big system that's going to be moving this direction across the southeast. Right now we're looking dry, but that core of cold air is in place. Out of Texas, we're going to have this storm that's going to be moving across Louisiana and Mississippi and the deep south, giving many areas several inches of snow through the middle of the week.
Good Monday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. Look at these temperatures through the day today. International Falls struggling to even get to maybe 15 below zero. It's going to be such a cold day across the Midwest for the day today. Not much in the way of any snow unless you're talking about lake effect snow And pretty quiet again for Tuesday, and also a little warmer for some of us, and some light snow moving in Wednesday.
Good Monday morning. I'm meteorologist Joe DeCarlo. Look to forecast across the region and a lot going on. A lot of colors here. We do have a winter weather advisory, winter storm warning along the Gulf Coast, and cold weather alerts to the north. So here comes the winter storm in the days ahead, increasing some rain near Corpus Christi, ice by the evening around San Antonio, and we will have some snow. Austin to San Antonio, Houston, stretching to New Orleans in the days ahead. This will be Monday night through the day on Tuesday.
Good Monday morning. I'm meteorologist Stella Sun. We've got a dip in the jet stream, and that is pulling in some of that cold Arctic air. So temperatures later today, double ones in Denver, 6 degrees in Jackson, Wyoming, 15 in Missoula. Across the West Coast, in the 60s in San Francisco, Los Angeles, where we're concerned with some of those Santa Ana winds picking up. In Seattle, a mix of the sun and the clouds, 41 degrees. That's the scene from here.
The National News Desk. Locally covered, nationally connected.
Today, Donald J. Trump will be sworn in as the 47th president of the United States. Hundreds of thousands of Americans are in D.C. to watch history in the making.
For me, it's the immigration policies. I really think that we have to start caring about Americans first.
Bring back TikTok.
Change of economy, start drilling again, secure our borders.
Right now, Trump's team already at work getting ready to sign hundreds of executive orders aimed at putting America first.
And in our magnificent victory on November 5th, you showed them once and for all that this nation does not belong to them. This nation belongs to you.
And thank you for joining us. You are watching the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Jan Jeffcoat. It's Monday, January 20th. In just a few hours, Trump will be president again. That inauguration taking place at noon Eastern at the Capitol Rotunda after being moved inside. We do have live coverage all morning of every moment leading up to Trump taking the oath of office. Kayla Gaskins is in Washington. We're going to have more with her in just a moment. First, though, let's go to Mark Boyle at the live desk breaking down what we can expect. Good morning.
Jan, good morning to you and everyone at home. Thank you for being with us here. It has been a very busy weekend here in Washington, D.C., overnight and now into the morning hours. Let's start with a live look outside the Blair House. This is where preparing to leave the Blair House to go to St. John's. That's where the church service is going to be shortly thereafter. All of this is happening right around the White House. The video you're looking at behind me, new right now, now this hour, just sent in from our reporters there on the ground. This is outside Capitol One Arena. This is where all of these folks, many of them had the tickets to go to the National Mall to watch in person. That was obviously moved indoors, so now they're all going to try and get inside. Last night was the rally. I actually had dinner down here. It was a madhouse, folks. People were down there. There's a ton of excitement, and that's where they are right now this morning, lining up to watch the inauguration, and then that's where Donald Trump will show up once he is sworn in this afternoon. Security at the Capitol for the media, all things opened around 6 a.m. That church service at St. John's, we had it slated at 8 a.m. Donald Trump already beating to his own drum, though. It's 8:32 right now, and he is not there, but he will be there shortly inside the church. We did see a picture of Elon Musk. We'll get to that later in the newscast and give you an idea of who's inside. Following, as I mentioned, the swearing-in ceremony at noon, and then we'll head over to Capitol One Arena. Everything is going to be done inside the Capitol Rotunda in terms of the swearing in, that inaugural address starting at noon today. The presidential parade then kicks off at Capitol One Arena. More than 200,000 people traveled to D.C. to see this event. Many disappointed by that decision that came down on Friday by Donald Trump when everything was announced that was going to be moved indoors for health and safety reasons. Of course, it's very cold around here, and a big snowstorm event here, several inches of snow on the ground. Some questioned if the main reason only was weather for moving in. Was it security? What really was it? Right now, we know it is a weather reason. That's why things were moved indoors. And many folks couldn't be accommodated, though. So one of the many groups present at the inaugural parade will be that of the police. EMTs, the group that responded to Trump's assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. And they will honor Corey Comparatore. The photograph here behind me, he was shot and killed at that event there in Pennsylvania. He was with his family at the time. I'm monitoring this live picture off to my left this morning to see if things break. We're going to show folks who stand by. A lot going on here at the live desk this morning, and you can monitor anytime if you're away from your TV online at thenationaldesk.com.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark. And we want to go live now to the National News Desk's Kayla Gaskins on Capitol Hill. Kayla, what are some of the big things to watch for today?
Well, it's already shaping up to be an out-of-the-ordinary inauguration day for multiple reasons. The main one right now that's the most obvious is moving the ceremony from outside on the National Mall indoors into the Capitol Rotunda. So on a typical inauguration day, the crowds would already be filling up the National Mall right behind me. It would start as Donald Trump will take his swearing in inside, and only around 600 people will be able to attend in person. Who makes that special list? Supreme Court justices, leaders of the House and the Senate, as well as foreign dignitaries at an inauguration. But we expect to see the Vice President of China, the President of Argentina, and the Prime Minister of Italy. The former presidents will be here as well. Obama and Clinton slated to attend. Biden will also be here. Who is not attending today are Michelle Obama and Nancy Pelosi. And after the swearing-in ceremony, Donald Trump will give his inaugural address. Jan, these speeches are really important. People pay very close attention to them because it sets the tone for the next 4 years. Live on Capitol Hill, I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
Kayla, thank you very much. One thing we do know today Trump's going to do is sign as many as 200 executive orders and has promised to make his first week back in office the biggest in presidential history. The orders are expected to focus on immigration, energy, and government hiring, including declaring a border emergency and designating cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. He also plans to reverse Biden-era restrictions on energy production and overhaul the federal workforce while ending DEI hiring practices.
We're inheriting a nation faced with crises at home and abroad. It's been a long 4 years, nasty. It's been a nasty 4 years. My administration will take immediate and decisive action to confront every single problem America faces and put our nation back on the path to success and greatness.
Trump also expected to sign an executive order that will keep TikTok from going dark. Over the weekend, the app did go offline for about 12 hours, but is now back up and running after Trump promised to save it.
And we're confident that we can save TikTok, but also protect Americans' data and protect them from influence, whether that's an outright sale, whether that's some mechanism of firewalls to make sure that the data is protected from a security standpoint.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says as soon as Trump places his hand on the Bible and swears the oath to the United States Constitution, the golden age of America will begin. Author of the Beltway Brief, Christopher Bedford, joining us now. You know, Trump's administration has been saying promises made, promises kept. Do you say some of these still require Congress? He can't do all of these alone.
Well, unlike the last time Trump came into office, he is able to do a decent amount of this alone. Essentially, what he needs from Congress is money. And that's why they're asking up front for over $100 billion to be able to aid in the deportation of people who are here illegally, starting with people who have committed crimes in the country. That's going to be really the main role for Congress, that and confirmations, of course. What's coming in the 200 or so executive orders coming down from Donald Trump is going to be a reshaping, hopefully, of American statecraft, American energy policy, American immigration policy. But most of these laws are on the books. It's just that the Biden administration has declined to enforce them. Now, the problem he faces, though, is obviously he's not to get followed out. They're essentially glorified press releases. What's going to be essential here, and what didn't happen in 2017, is having the right people in the right positions, which so far he's set to have, who actually execute on those orders, who say, here is my authority from the President of the United States to make changes in the Department of Defense, and the Department of State, and the Department of Energy, and we are going to do those. They're going to face lawsuits, of course, from outside environmental groups and activist groups, and it's going to be a harder slog than it at first appears.
You know, one thing Trump talked about heavily during the campaign was the weaponization of the federal government. Chris, what changes will we see with the FBI and the DOJ?
Hopefully what we'll see with the FBI in particular is a return to the FBI pre-9/11. The FBI got over its skis a great deal in the 1960s, 1970s, and you saw the Church Committee, a bipartisan committee, investigate its politicization in the United States, its internal surveillance operations, really removed politics and spying from a lot of it and put in the law enforcement. And that's the FBI we grew up with, watching Silence of the Lambs, and they're going after criminals and serial killers. That is not the FBI today, and a large thing to do with that is after 9/11, they were giving much more sweeping powers that quickly developed into politicization. You need to rein that back in, change the culture, remove bad actors. That's going to be a difficult job, but one that hopefully over the next 4 years, and if people like J.D. Vance winning the rings are lucky, the 8 years after that, to actually be able to see that through.
Chris, the two big issues for voters, the economy and immigration, the border crisis. As we know, he's already made all these sweeping executive orders that he's going to be making for the border, including closing the border. He says when it comes to the thing that lawmakers were sort of battling over was the tax cuts and extending those, and we need those to be extended, the 2017 Trump tax cuts. Will we see those tax cuts being held hostage until we see some legislation on the border?
I think so. The Trump administration is eager to make sure a border gets across first. Tax cuts, especially for corporations, are generally easy to pass through Congress. That's something that they're always interested in, Democrats and even Republicans as well. A harder thing for the Trump tax cuts is going to be the ones that impact you and me, the family tax cuts. Those things don't take the same priority they had to in Washington, and they're an important part of the Trump tax cuts and one that should be pushed forward. But the funny thing about Washington is small, targeted, a bigger, larger bill is what's going to be essential.
Okay, so you think it's going to be border first and then taxes. That's what you think?
Or all combined.
Okay, author of the Beltway Brief, Chris Bedford. Great having you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it. Still ahead, we continue to follow the very latest as we get closer to Trump taking the oath of office. Hundreds of thousands of supporters are in D.C. as the inauguration is moved indoors. We are coming to you live from the nation's capital.
And we are following the breaking news this morning here at the live desk. What you're watching right now, it appears they're on the move. So what we're seeing, President-elect Donald Trump in the motorcade right now, leaving the Blair House. You're watching this live as we are 8:41 on the East Coast. They're leaving the Blair House, headed to St. John's, just a few blocks away for a prayer service there. And then the long day of the inauguration will begin. So that is something we've been waiting for. This was supposed to begin around 8 o'clock this morning, about 41 minutes delayed. We don't have control of these cameras. We're monitoring the live feeds as they come in. So again, leaving the Blair House, head to that prayer service, and then we will see Mr. Trump come in with live pictures continuing here. In the meantime, new images right now into the live desk as we continue on this morning. There is the St. John's Church as we monitor for you. So now, we want to shift gears just for a moment. This is another big story. You're watching some of the video. These are Hamas-held hostages finally freed after being held captive for more than 470 days. The latest details on this breaking story as well. Next, when we return here at the Live Desk. Up for me. All right, 8:43 right now. Live pictures for you. President-elect Donald Trump, you see him right there at the center of your screen with Melania. They just walked inside the Blair House. Left the Blair House. They were going to St. John's. That is where the prayer service will be. If you're not familiar with where St. John's is, small yellow church right there. This is just across the street from the White House, about 1 block away. So we'll spend a little bit of time in there. Glad we could show you these live pictures as they are unfolding this morning here on Inauguration Day in America. This day starts inside that church. Long history there. Trump, J.D. Vance, and others will be inside there. They'll pray with Reverend Robert Fisher inside that small church. A long history beginning with James Madison. Every president has attended a service there. They even have their own pew. The church has a storied past, of course, and we will monitor this for you as it breaks. When he comes out, we'll bring you those live pictures as well. Let's continue on with some other big news this morning. Right now at the Live Desk, we're getting some new images. The first hostages reunited with their families. 3 women, Romy Gonen, Doran Steinbrecher, and Emily Domry. You're looking at some of these new images as we are here, new from overnight. They're said to be in stable condition and receiving medical treatment this morning in Tel Aviv. 30 more hostages will be released in the coming weeks. Last night, one night before taking the oath of office, Trump had this to say about the deal that finally came together to get these hostages home after more than 470 days.
You see, what a job. Just got back from the Middle East. He had a little project that he did very well on. And we took in the first hostages today, and they're coming in tomorrow, and they're going to keep coming in. And you notice it was the day before we take office. Even though the other administration, I'll be nice tonight, the other administration says, well, they didn't have too much to do with it, did they? No, not at all. Just happened to be the day before we took office. But you were fantastic, Steve, and I appreciate it.
And we do have more new video. This was taken out of the West Bank on Sunday as the first round of 90 prisoners were released. Israeli military also withdrew from several locations in northern Gaza. We are bringing you the latest out of the Middle East this morning and here in D.C. at the Live Desk.
Looking live right now over Capitol Hill in just hours. Of course, the inauguration has been moved inside the Capitol Rotunda. Tens of thousands of supporters right now already planning to watch from Capitol One, D.C., miles away. And the National News Desk's Joy Wang joining us live from outside the arena right now. Good morning to you, Joy. I'm told there's already lines outside right now.
You know, these lines, people started lining up. Can you believe it? 6:30 yesterday, I talked to a man who was at the front of the line, and he told me that he was at the president-elect event last night at Capitol One Arena. Once that event was over, he got right back in line, waited more than 12 hours to be able to be at the front of the line. And so when doors opened at 7 o'clock now when our crews got here just after 4 o'clock this morning, thousands of people were already in line. And now, almost 2 hours after doors have opened, we are still seeing thousands of people pile in. What you're also seeing a lot of trash on the ground, a lot of bags. There were people selling hand warmers, and then also people selling a lot of merchandise. A lot of people selling Trump hats and scarves, you name it. And now all of them having to take those hats off to be able to get through security. And so a lot of people definitely unaware of some of the restrictions that are in place. Secret Service letting them know, hey, no bags inside. I saw someone leave their coach purse just outside of the gate trying to get in. Another person asking if we'd be able to hold on to some of their items in the meantime so they could get inside, because a lot of the people out here have been waiting for hours. And so as you can see, the lines continue. There are porta potties nearby and a lot of people hoping to be able to get inside, because 200,000 expected on the National Mall originally, but because of the cold weather, 21 degrees right now out here, they are moving into Capital One Arena, which can only hold 20,000 people.
So the first 20,000 are going to get in, and there's going to be possibly tens of thousands who are just going to be standing outside there. What are some of the restrictions?
Yeah, so I talked to a few people and I said, were you able to get tickets? And they said, we got tickets for the National Mall event, but as far as they could tell, there was no ticketing system to get into Capital One Arena. And so that's why they had to get here so early. Another couple people, they told me that their Uber dropped them off just after 5 o'clock this morning. They saw the lines. They knew they weren't going to get in. And there were also some people who were in line who knew they wouldn't be able to get in, but wanted to be a part of the crowd. I talked to two other people who I saw leave the line, and I asked them, why are you leaving the line right now? You've been there for so long. And they said they were heading to work.
I was so confused at first when I was seeing some of the purses and coats and things that were sort of left around that area. There are major restrictions as to what can be brought inside Capital One Arena, and people, as you have said, have left a lot of things. So there's no bags allowed, no purses allowed. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the exact restrictions are when it comes to what can get inside, but you can see some of the sizes of the bags that we were mentioning as we pan down. I mean, that's a pretty small purse over there. And then I know when it comes to Capital One Arena, when I've come for games in the past, I've made sure to bring a clear bag with me. And right here, I can see there are a couple clear bags on the ground, and they also haven't been able to bring those inside either. And so another person that you're seeing right near the gate, she's rifling through her pockets and things like that. She's got a couple clear bags, and we're not quite sure what's going to happen next, but it looks like a lot of people really trying to figure out
what they can keep. Wow.
Can't bring inside.
Oh my
as
goodness.
they get ready to head in. And also a lot of people were buying hand warmers too. They're not allowed to bring food inside, and we've seen a lot of people just kind of leaving back out here as well. I saw someone hold up an umbrella and ask, can I bring this inside? They said no. And so as you can see, a lot of people just kind of looks like she's decided to leave her bag
all while battling
on the side because
those
she
frigid
probably
temperatures.
Can't bring that in.
My goodness. Joy Wang, we appreciate you outside of Capital One Arena right now, watching the big crowds right now, trying to get in to the arena. We appreciate you. Thank you. Mark?
All right, Jan, two major events today, holiday, of course, MLK Day. What's opened, what's closed with Inauguration Day as well happening? We'll explain what's next here at the Live Desk. Back inside right now, inside that church, that is St. John's Episcopal Church here in Washington, D.C., Mr. Trump with his wife and many other dignitaries inside for the morning prayer service. This is a 92-year tradition. Trump, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, and others, a very small group, will pray with Reverend Robert Fisher, that church just across the street from Lafayette Square, just across then from the White House. This church has a long history of presidential visits, beginning with James Madison. Every president has attended a service there. There's even a pew 54, for presidents when they attend those services. Today also is MLK Day, and this is the only second time in history MLK Day and Inauguration Day have fallen on the exact same day. The first time back in 1997 with Bill Clinton's second inauguration. The federal holiday is always the third Monday of January. We'll have continued coverage of Inauguration Day and live pictures from around the Capitol here when we return in 90 seconds.
I'm meteorologist Ryan Munn. Let's get a look at the Northeast as we head through the daytime on Monday. That storm is moved to be very, very cold all throughout the Northeast as we head through the day on Monday. And this will continue not only into Monday, but Tuesday, even into the middle of the work week as well. We are talking temperatures that are going to be very, very cold throughout the region, but mainly dry. High temperatures today topping out in the teens to near 20.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Bailey. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. We are now drying out, but a very Arctic air mass is setting in. This is going to be brutally cold over the next few days. High pressure is going to push overhead, so we're going to stay mostly dry, except for maybe some light snow showers across the mountains. So going into your Monday, it's extremely cold. We're talking about single digits in the mountains, teens down closer towards the lowlands, and we'll still be that cold coming into Tuesday as well.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs for the day. Chilly temperatures. Look at Nashville, only 23 degrees. 32 Birmingham, 35 Raleigh, looking at 47 Jacksonville, Tampa about 55 degrees. We have a big system that's going to be moving this direction across the southeast. Right now we're looking dry, but that core of cold air is in place. Out of Texas, we're going to have this storm that's going to be moving across Louisiana and Mississippi and the deep south, giving many areas several inches of snow through the middle of the week.
Good Monday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Michael. Look at these temperatures through the day today. International Falls struggling to even get to maybe 15 below zero. It's going to be such a cold day across the Midwest for the day today. Not much in the way of any snow unless you're talking about lake effect snow, and pretty quiet again for Tuesday, and also a little warmer for some of us, and some light snow moving in Wednesday.
Good Monday morning. I'm meteorologist Joe DiCarlo. Look at your forecast across the region and a lot going on. A lot of colors here. We do have a winter weather advisory, winter storm warning along the Gulf Coast, and cold weather alerts to the north. So here comes the winter storm in the days ahead, increasing some rain near Corpus Christi, ice by the evening around San Antonio, and we will have some snow. Austin to San Antonio, Houston, stretching to New Orleans in the days ahead. This will be Monday night through the day on Tuesday.
Good Monday morning. I'm meteorologist Stella Sun. We've got a dip in the jet stream, and that is pooling in some of that cold Arctic air. So temperatures later today, double ones in Denver, 6 degrees in Jackson, Wyoming, 15 in Missoula. Across the West Coast, in the 60s in San Francisco, Los Angeles, where we're concerned with some of those Santa Ana winds picking up. In Seattle, a mix of the sun and the clouds, 41 degrees. That's the scene from here.
The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected. In hours, Donald J. Trump will be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States.
Hello, America. We're all over America. I'm thrilled to be back.
With the votes of millions and the hopes of millions more.
With so many friends, supporters, and true American patriots on the eve of taking back our country.
To fulfill a promise to make America great again.
The curtain closes on 4 long years of American decline, and we begin a brand new day of American strength and prosperity, dignity, and pride.
President Trump returns to the White House as the dawn of a new day begins in America.
And we are going to make America great again.
The National News Desk is America's News Now.
Breaking right now, Donald J. Trump will be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States, marking an unprecedented comeback in U.S. politics with Trump's promise to you live from the nation's capital. This is the National News Desk. America's News Now. I'm Jan Jeffcoat. It's Monday, January 20th. And as we do get ready to welcome a new president, we also honor the memory and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the day highlighting the civil rights movement and freedom for all Americans. And as we take a live look over the Capitol, where Donald Trump will be sworn in at noon Eastern, he does promise his new institutions work to uphold those time-tested and fundamental U.S. principles. Trump's team says his inauguration speech will focus on unity and how to make the lives of all Americans better.
Starting tomorrow, I will act with historic speed and strength and fix every single crisis facing our country. We have to do it.
Live Desk, good morning to you, sir.
Jan, good morning to you. Right now, we continue to monitor what's happening in and around Washington, D.C. It's been a busy weekend, continues to be a busy morning here on this Monday. Live look outside St. John's Episcopal Church. This is off to the left. Inside, this is where Donald Trump is right now for a prayer service. Behind me, this is some new video, folks. This was taken fans lining up to watch the viewing. They're going to be the ones inside the arena that will watch it inside. It was supposed to be outside, of course. That outdoor viewing was canceled after the church service, and that ceremonial tea then will kick off at the White House. This is what today will look like. So after they leave the church, It's then to tea at the White House with the Bidens, so you can follow along with the schedule and the swearing-in ceremony right at the top of the hour at noon today. And then D.C., of course, has really plunged into some dangerously cold temperatures. This year's parade is going to be inside Capital One Arena. You can seat about 20,000 people. They packed in there early this morning. Originally, around 7,500 people were expected to be in the parade. Some have questioned if the only factor to move indoors was that of the weather. One of the many groups present at the inaugural parade will be police, EMTs. They will be the ones that responded to Trump's assassination attempt in Butler. This is a photograph of Corey Comparatore, the volunteer firefighter who was shot and killed at that rally. He will be honored today. Now, we are monitoring how things change here in D.C. when there's movement, live activity. We'll show it to you. Again, this is a quiet, static shot right now, but when Trump and crew leaves, we'll bring it to you. You're watching the National News Desk. Jan, back to you.
All right, thank you. Despite the weather, hundreds of thousands still gathered here in Washington, D.C. And the National News Desk's Kayla Gaskins does continue our live team coverage from Capitol Hill. The vibe, Kayla, so different because of those below freezing temperatures and because of all those festivities being moved indoors at this point.
Yeah, Jen, this is a very unusual inauguration day out here on the National Mall. If this was a typical inauguration, you would be able to hear the crowds behind me. It would start to get loud and energetic as supporters of Donald Trump filled up the mall, and that was their plan. And now, like Mark just said, there was some chatter as to if the weather alone was the only reason the ceremonies were moved from the National Mall, per tradition, into the Capitol Rotunda. I can attest it is very, very cold out here. Now, I know the camera can't get this part of the shot, but the Capitol reflecting pool, if you're familiar with the Capitol at all, there's that body of water right in front of it. It is completely frozen over, Jan. So that is how cold it is out here. And it's also very quiet for an inauguration day as we wait for the president to finish up his church service and make his way here to the Rotunda where the official swearing-in ceremony will happen. Only 600 people around, give or take, can make it into the room to witness the ceremony in person. That will be the Supreme Court justices there in the crowd, the leaders of the House and the Senate, as well as some special guests of the president. Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are on that list, and some foreign dignitaries as well. Former presidents Obama and Clinton will be here. Joe Biden also making an appearance, notably not present today, Michelle Obama and Nancy Pelosi. Now, after the swearing-in ceremony, Donald Trump will give his inaugural address from the Capitol Rotunda. This is a very important speech that we will pay close attention to because, Jan, it will set the stage for the next 4 years and really the tone of his second inauguration. Live on Capitol Hill, I'm Kayla Gaskins, reporting for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
Kayla, thank you very much. Today's inauguration of Trump will also be the first to welcome foreign leaders. Top officials from around the world traveled to D.C. to attend Trump's swearing-in ceremony at the Capitol, including representatives from China, Argentina, France, Georgia, and Italy. China's Xi Jinping got the first foreign, and his VP did meet with his future counterpart, J.D. Vance, to discuss really a range of topics, including fentanyl, trade, and regional stability. With more on what we can expect today and Trump's foreign policy proposals is the president of the Government Accountability Institute and author of nearly a dozen New York Times best-selling books, including China, Peter Schweizer. We appreciate you joining us today during the swearing-in ceremony. A lot of firsts happening. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's very interesting first. I mean, this hasn't happened before, right? He likes to make deals. We have to be cautious. It's always a question of whether deals actually get carried out as they are agreed to. But I think this is an important step because the two great powers on the stage right now are the United States and China when it comes to the economy, national security, pretty much any issue. So talking is good, and let's hope that China...
What does this mean about the other enemies that we have around the world? Iran, North Korea, Russia. What does this say to them?
It's a great question, Jan. Look, for all of those other powers, Iran and Russia, for example, China's their senior partner. If Russia were not getting the economic support from China right now, the Ukraine war would be over. They would be done. So Russia needs China much more than China needs Russia, and the same thing with Iran. So what Trump is really doing is sidestepping these other powers and going to the heart of the issue, which is China's role in supporting these other regimes. And again, as he negotiates all of these issues, whether it's TikTok, whether it's tariffs, whether it's Ukraine war, China's going to play a central role, and it's going to be interesting to see whether he can get movement in a significant way on all of these issues.
Speaking of TikTok, Peter, we've been hearing for months about the national security concerns with China and TikTok, and now there's that hold on getting rid of it until there's more time for TikTok to divest from China. How dangerous, though, is TikTok if we're going to put this on hold?
Yeah, I think TikTok is an enormous problem. They speak among themselves. I quote them in my book, Blood Money, as to how TikTok is kind of a Trojan horse to use against the United States. They use it for manipulation of young people. They use it not just for propaganda, but to emotionally manipulate people. What's happened right now is the law allows for an additional 90-day grace period, which is now kicked in. So the ban, of course, did not take place. 90 days from now, they will need to show that there is a deal in place, or what's going to happen is the U.S. tech companies like Apple, for example, and Google cannot support, meaning that it will die a slow, agonizing death. My hope is that the Chinese will recognize they're going to be made whole. This is a sale. This is not a seizure of the company. Make American consumers happy so they...
President of the Government Accountability Office, Peter Schweizer. Always great to see you, sir. Thanks for joining us here.
Thanks, Jen.
Mark?
Right now here at 9:09, we continue.
All right, we're going to go back to Mark momentarily here. First, though, while Donald Trump's inauguration currently 2 hours away, many of his supporters held a victory rally inside Capitol One Arena in Washington, D.C. In a packed house, thousands of Trump supporters, patriots, and everyday Americans heard from a series of speakers, including Trump's family, his team members, incoming ambassadors, and several pro-American advocates.
Once and for all, we're going to end the reign of a failed and corrupt political establishment in Washington, a failed administration. We're not going to take it anymore.
Trump wrapped up the celebration doing his trademark Trump dance with a live performance of the YMCA with the Village People. And in a sign of the times, the new CBS... The young voters are the group most excited about Trump's return to the White House, with 67% of 18 to 29-year-olds optimistic about the next 4 years.
What we're looking at right now on the left side of the screen there, can we pull that back, those two pictures in the control room, if we can go back? I wanted to show those two side by sides. What you're looking at now is some snow across the country. There we go. On the left side, thank you for that. On the left side, you're seeing Elon Musk, Representative Waltz there. That's inside St. John's Episcopal Church. That's where Trump is right now. On the right side, that is a live static camera, a crew, a pool camera on the outside. Inside, as I mentioned, is where that prayer service is underway. This is a 92-year tradition, 92-year-old tradition on Inauguration Day. The Trumps then will leave there at some point, head to the White House. That's where there will be a tea with the Bidens. So just to follow along as this day continues to unfold. And just if you're joining us, there's going to be some bumps as we go through here because we're taking this live. We are going with these live pictures as they happen, so bear with us. As soon as the Trumps leave there, we will bring that live picture back to you. Shifting gears now to the weather and that snow picture. There it is. Look at the weather. This is in New Haven, Connecticut. The snow really coming down there overnight. Bitter cold setting in, slamming much of the East Coast right now with more ice and snow in some areas. This morning we are tracking that life-threatening Arctic freeze. A live look at the radar showing the winter weather alerts. All this blue, it's not often you see so many. Down here in Houston, they're actually forecasting in Houston a couple of inches of snow. Tomorrow, Houston and Bush airports in Houston not going to operate because of the weather, believe it or not, down there. Live look right now over the National Mall this morning as this life-threatening cold comes in. This is that live picture. The river, part of it frozen over. It is very cold here there on the National Mall. Events, of course, moved indoors because of the extreme cold. And talking about those temperatures, the low today, a frigid 6 degrees. A high, we're only going to get around the low 20s. Forecasters say this is the coldest inauguration in about 40 years, since 1985. More than 30 states now on alert because of the cold. Forecasters predict more than 114 million Americans will experience those below freezing temperatures at some point this week. We're really not going to warm up quickly. Let's turn now to the other big weather story, now out to California, expecting the fire concerns to be another big issue this week. The wind, that Santa Ana wind is back with a vengeance, really. Starting this week, you see all these alerts, the pink alerts, that's for the fire danger. Across the Los Angeles region, these will be up through tomorrow. Then a lesser wind event is expected again on Wednesday night through Thursday. The winds did calm down over the weekend. That gave fire crews an opportunity to get a better handle on those flames. We just updated these numbers for you. The Palisades fire, that was the big one we've been reporting on now for days. 56% contained. The other one, the Eden fire, now closer to full containment at 81%. So they're making some progress. Updates as we get them both on air and online here at the National Weather Desk, which is part of the nationaldesk.com.
Mark, thank you. Stay with us for live continuing coverage of the presidential inauguration. We're going to have the latest from Capitol Hill as Donald Trump prepares to be sworn in as the 47th president.
And we are monitoring some breaking news this morning. President Joe Biden, in his one of the last remaining moves here, he has pardoned Dr. Anthony Fauci, also retired general. That came down right around 6 a.m. this morning. Fauci was the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases at the National Institutes of Health for nearly 40 years and was Biden's chief medical advisor until he retired in 22. He helped coordinate the nation's response to COVID-19. More on these breaking stories. A lot happening this morning. We're back in 90 seconds. Live look right now for you. If we drop that banner just for a moment, just so we can see who we're looking at here, I want to make sure looks like there is J.D. Vance's wife and J.D. Vance as they walk out. We're going to stay with this picture and take this full for you. They were just inside for a prayer service inside St. John's Episcopal Church. We're going to stay with us until we see Trump walk out with Melania here shortly. They went in just before 9 o'clock. The morning started at the Blair House, which is where the Trump stayed overnight, and then they made their way for a prayer service here at St. John's Episcopal Church. It's that small yellow church just across the street from the White House. And then they are going to make their way after this to the White House for a tea with the Bidens. If you're wondering what this is all about with this church service and the prayer service, well, this is a 92-year Inauguration Day tradition. This has been happening for a while, of course, and so after that tea service, then they will head towards the Capitol Rotunda, and they will then begin the long morning of the inauguration, the swearing in. Trump and Vance, of course, were inside. Mr. Trump still inside to the control room. Please keep an eye on this. We're going to continue on with the next big story here and come back to this as soon as we see them come out. Jan, we'll send things back to you.
All right, we'll keep that picture up, Mark. So you just let me know. You just wave me down whenever we see the president coming out. Another one of Trump's cabinet picks we're keeping an eye on is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. And joining us now to discuss this is former White House economic advisor Steve Moore. Steve, good morning to you. Talk to me about Scott Bessent. I saw you just a few hours ago. I feel like I just saw you yesterday. He was at an event that the organization was hosting there, along with Senator Rand Paul, Senator Ron Johnson, Arthur Laffer. I mean, it was an eye-opening event about the economy and about Trump's economic proposals. Talk to us about Scott Bessent, the man himself. What are some of the things that he's pushing? What does he support?
Well, it's great to see you yesterday, Jan, and it was a lot of fun. I wanted to say one quick thing about this pardon to Anthony Fauci. I just think it's so outrageous. Anthony Fauci, I think, is a villain, and I think he should be on trial. But
well, no, but I'm glad you mentioned this because this is something that literally just broke this morning. This is from the Associated Press. It broke about 2 hours ago. You know, we keep talking about Trump making all of these big moves. Today, he's going to sign some 200 executive orders, and he's going in with a bang. Well, Biden's also going out with a bang as well. He is issuing these pardons for Dr. Anthony Fauci, as well as General Mark Milley, as well as all of the House members on the January 6th committee. What is your thoughts about that?
Well, I didn't even know the president had the power to preemptively pardon someone because they haven't put on trial yet. So they haven't. And so, I think that we should still go ahead with the trial because I think what happened in 2020 was one of the gravest mistakes our country has ever made. And Anthony Fauci was the one who recommended shutting down their schools, shutting down our parks, shutting down our businesses, churches. And we now know that about 10 times more. We need to have a national focus on this. And why? Not just because we want to know what happened, but we want to make sure we never do this again. So that's the way I feel about it. And even though he has been pardoned, I still think we need a national investigation of what happened. Now, with respect to Scott Bessent, this guy is a financial. He's a good man. He's a smart man. He's made a lot of money, and I think he'll be an excellent Treasury Secretary. Now, the one thing about Scott is he's a little bit new to the game. He's new to Washington, and you've been in this town a long time. I have been. You got to kind of figure out how the town works and, how you get things done in this town. So we'll see. And I think he'll be an excellent Treasury Secretary. But he's gonna be a little green at first, and we'll see how he performs.
I was going to ask you about that because one thing that happened yesterday is you said, you know what, we probably need to let him go before he starts talking too much because he is he is going to be the Treasury Secretary. It does seem like his confirmation hearing will be very easy. I mean, getting him pushed through.
I think his hearing last week went fantastic.
It did.
I thought it was opposite party tries to get one of the nominees to say something stupid or something that can be used against them. But I thought he was fantastic. He really took it right back at him. So really proud of him. And I can't wait to see him get into office. Incidentally, I mean, these cabinet members are going to they need to be confirmed right away, Jan, because Trump wants to go, and it's going to be hard for him to go if his cabinet is not in place.
Steve, hold that thought. I want you to stay there as we take a live look right. Mark, I want you to come into this conversation. He is now coming out of the church with his wife, Melania Trump there. Mark, I'm going to let you finish.
Yeah, let's keep this picture up. Yeah. And Steve, thanks for being with us this morning. What our folks at home are looking at right now through that tree, getting into the SUVs, Trump just left St. John's there in Washington, D.C., across from the White House. They were in there for a prayer service with J.D. Vance and his wife as well. They went in. They were only inside for about 45 minutes. And after they leave here, they're then going to head to the White House, and they are going to speak with the Bidens. There's going to be a tea service there. So that's how things started. It started at the Blair House. That's where they stayed overnight, just a few blocks away. Moved this motorcade to St. John's. What you're watching right now is the wrapping of that prayer service. Things just ended. This is an Inauguration Day history-making move here because this happens. This historically happens every Inauguration Day, and now they're headed to the White House. That meeting won't be too long. It will then continue. That all officially will wrap and happen right before noon. Keeping in mind, while all of this is going on, normally there are tens of thousands of people around there. All of those voters, all the fans, they are over at the Capitol One Arena 10, 20 blocks away. And Jan, Steve, we'll send things back to you as we're watching these live pictures. We're watching this unfold together here this morning at 9:23 on the East Coast.
All right, Steve, we got to hit a quick break right here, but I want you to stay seated, stay there. We'll come back to you in a couple minutes, all right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm meteorologist Ryan Munn. Let's get a look at the Northeast as we head through the daytime on Monday. That storm is moving out of here. The sunshine has returned. However, it is going to be very, very cold all throughout the Northeast as we head through the day on Monday. And this will continue not only into Monday, but Tuesday, even into the middle of the work week as well. We are talking temperatures that are going to be very, very cold throughout the region, but mainly dry. High temperatures today topping out in the teens to near 20.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Bailey. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. We are now drying out, but a very Arctic air mass is setting in. This is going to be brutally cold over the next few days. High pressure is going to push overhead, so we're going to stay mostly dry, except for maybe some light snow showers across the mountains. So going into your Monday, it's extremely cold. We're talking about single digits in the mountains, teens down closer towards the lowlands, and we'll still be that cold coming into Tuesday as well.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs for the day. Chilly temperatures. Look at Nashville, only 23 degrees. 32 Birmingham, 35 Raleigh, looking at 47 Jacksonville, Tampa about 55 degrees. We have a big system that's going to be moving across Louisiana and Mississippi and the Deep South, giving many areas several inches of snow through the middle of the week.
Good Monday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Michael. Look at these temperatures through the day today. International Falls struggling to even get to maybe 15 below zero. It's going to be such a cold day across the Midwest for the day today. Not much in the way of any snow unless you're talking about lake effect snow, and pretty quiet again for Tuesday, and also a little warmer for some of us, and some light snow moving in Wednesday.
Good Monday morning. I'm meteorologist Joe DiCarlo. Look at your forecast across the region and a lot going on. A lot of colors here. We do have a winter weather advisory, winter storm warning along the Gulf Coast, and cold weather alerts to the north. So here comes the winter storm in the days ahead, increasing some rain near Corpus Christi, ice by the evening around San Antonio, and we will have some snow. Austin to San Antonio, Houston, stretching to New Orleans in the days ahead. This will be Monday night through the day on Tuesday.
Good Monday morning. I'm meteorologist Stella Sun. We've got a dip in the jet stream, and that is pulling in some of that cold Arctic air. So temperatures later today, double ones in Denver, 6 degrees in Jackson, Wyoming, 15 in Missoula. Across the West Coast, in the 60s in San Francisco, Los Angeles, where we're concerned with some of those Santa Ana winds picking up. In Seattle, a mix of the sun and the clouds, 41 degrees. That's the scene from here.
The National News Desk. Locally covered, nationally connected.
Today, Donald J. Trump will be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. Hundreds of thousands of Americans are in D.C. to watch history in the making.
It's the immigration policies. I really think that we have to start caring about Americans first.
Bring back TikTok.
Change of economy, start drilling again, secure our borders.
Right now, Trump's team is already at work getting ready to sign hundreds of executive orders aimed at putting America first.
And in our magnificent victory on November 5th, you showed them once and for all that this nation does not belong to them. This nation belongs to you.
I'm Jan Jeffcoat. It's Monday, January 20th. In just a few hours, Trump will be president again. The inauguration will take place at noon Eastern at the Capitol Rotunda after being moved inside because of dangerously cold temperatures. We do have live coverage all morning of every moment leading up to Trump taking the oath of office, starting with Mark Boyle at the live desk, breaking down what we can expect. Mark.
Jan, it's been a busy weekend here and continues to be. We want to continue to follow what exactly we're looking at here as we bring up this camera shot. This is all the crowds at the Capital One Arena. This is a live picture there close to the Blair House here in Washington, D.C. So it's been a busy morning. The Trumps just wrapped up a prayer service inside St. John's Episcopal, which is not too far from the Blair House, just across the street from the White House. So here's what things will look like today. This is the schedule. The screening gates, they open at 6 a.m. We're past that. Now went to the St. John's service. We just saw that wrap up a few minutes ago. Now the tea service at the White House. This is where we are in the morning. Happen to have a tea opportunity to talk with the Bidens. That is what is going to happen in the next hour or so. And then the swearing-in ceremony, that is at noon. And then after that, Trump will head to the Capital One Arena. You saw that video of all those people. They all started filing in around 7 o'clock this morning. More than 200,000 people. That's the estimated number. Traveled to D.C. for the big event. Many a little disappointed about not getting inside because of the dangerously cold temperatures. Also, there will be some honoring happening. I want to show you that picture that just popped up here behind me. EMTs will be here. Police will be here. They're going to honor this man behind me. If you're not sure who this is, that's Corey Comparatore. He was the one that was shot and killed, the volunteer firefighter at that rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. So that will be one thing to watch for later this afternoon. We are monitoring things closely here in D.C. this morning as events are underway. Inauguration Day in America. Live details as they break right here at the live desk.
All right, Mark, thanks so much. Another thing we're monitoring this week are Trump's cabinet picks that are expected to get confirmed, starting with Marco Rubio. Another big one, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. And joining us now is former White House economic advisor Steve Moore, who I just saw last night at your big event. Scott Bessent, we were discussing him before the commercial break, and you said it's very important for Trump to get these picks and get them confirmed quickly.
Well, that's right, because this is, I believe, I've heard as many as 200 executive orders will be signed in the next few hours. That's a lot. And so this is a president who's going to be like secretariat out of the gate. But I wanted to make a point, if I could, because believe it or not, my first inauguration in this town was in 1984. And
Reagan.
I think back, by the way, do you know why that was an important inauguration? That was Reagan's re-election inauguration.
Also held indoors.
What's that?
Also held indoors. That was the...
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the last time they had to, I'm having a deja vu because that was the last time they could not hold the parade because it was so cold. And here we are 40 years later and they can't hold the parade. And by the way, that's kind of a sad thing because it's so iconic, that parade going down Pennsylvania
I want you to watch these live pictures too, because we understand that President Trump, soon to be president in a few hours, is expected to be arriving there at the White House to be greeted by, of course, soon-to-be former President Biden, as well as Jill Biden. We understand that coming out right now should be J.D. Vance and his wife, and you see them walking up the steps right there, and they're being greeted by the VP, Kamala Harris, and second gentleman, Doug Emhoff. What are your thoughts when you're looking at these live pictures right now? How surreal is this?
With Trump now for 8 or 9 years, and so I remember the 2016 inauguration and the feeling around the country, and it was, there was so much controversy about Trump. I mean, there always is, but the mood of the country was kind of fearful of what this new president might do. Whereas this time around, Jill, it's more like people are hopeful. There's a hopefulness and a confidence. And even my Democratic friends and my independent friends who are not as conservative as I am, they're like, this guy's going to do some great things for the country. So I think the mood of the country is pretty ebullient right now.
And during the first Trump administration, I recall, I was here also, and I recall all of the protests and all of the street fights and all of the vandalism that was happening here in the capital city. I mean, you remember the mood then was completely different than the mood is right now.
So true. And, the thing is, Jan, that he says, but I think, what he wants to do on energy policy, promote more energy production. He wants to, get better trade deals for the United States, wants to cut people's taxes. Those are all pretty popular initiatives. So, boy, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that room, by the
and hear
way,
this
where
conversation they're having right now.
Trump is meeting with President Biden. It would be interesting to see how that handoff of power goes.
And the irony is that this was not the case in 2021 when the handoff was between Trump and Biden, if you recall.
I do. So it's going to, so I was thinking, because 4 years ago, I actually went out to Andrews Air Force Base to watch Trump leave. And that was a kind of sad day because I'm a Trump guy. But I don't know what Joe Biden's plans are. Is he going to go to Andrews and fly? Well, he doesn't have to fly because he's probably going back to Delaware.
Correct.
But I don't know what his plans are once he leaves the White House right after this meeting.
He does. He does leave the White House after this meeting. And I wanted to talk to you very quickly about the economy, because Arthur Laffer, and he was really somebody who helped Trump construct the 2017 Trump tax cuts, which we know will be one of the biggest priorities for Trump in his first few months in office, if not, his first day today. Will he be able to get this before, finishing the debate on the border stuff? Will some GOP lawmakers hold the tax bill hostage?
That, Chad, that is the big issue. It has to get done, and I want to make sure that your viewers understand that failure is not an option here, because if they do not fail to get a tax bill done, then everybody's taxes are nothing happens. So there's imperative that they get this done. And the point that we made yesterday, all of the economists we assembled, is the faster they can do this, the more the business community knows what the tax code is going to look like, what the rules they're operating under. And I think you'll get a swifter recovery if we do it quickly.
Very quickly also, let's talk about tariffs, because there was this talk about a 15% across the board new tariff for some countries. Is this just part of a negotiating tactic?
Yeah, I know how to negotiate. And I have to say, he is an expert negotiator. I'm not a big fan of tariffs. I'm more of a free trade guy. So I'm a little uneasy about this. But I think the bottom line is, Jan, what he's saying to the American people, and I think many, if not most Americans agree with this, that if you make something in Maine or Michigan or Wisconsin or in the USA, you're going to pay a lower tax. But if you're importing something in from, say, China or Mexico, you're going to pay a higher tax. And that's for people to decide themselves whether they like that idea. But this is a kind of America first idea. I want to lower the taxes on things made here, increases the taxes on things that are coming into the country. Because remember, Jan, that tariffs are taxes.
Right.
Tariffs are taxes.
They are. Former White House Economic Advisor Steve Moore, great to have you on, and also get your wisdom from all the past inaugurations here in
exciting day. I mean, I have goosebumps. I really am. I'm so excited. I've been through this so many times, but it's just it's a great American tradition, this kind of peaceful transfer of power.
Yeah. Every time feels like the first time when you see this. It really does. All right. Great to see you, Steve. Stick around. We hope to talk to you a little bit more this morning if you can stick around. All right. Mark?
All right, Jan. Right now, 39 minutes past the hour. Let's take this live picture. This is a live camera from the Blair House, what you're looking at right now, and what we have seen at the White House just a few minutes ago. We saw J.D. Vance and his wife arriving with VP Kamala Harris and her husband, First Gentleman Doug Emhoff. They welcomed those two into the White House. We are set to watch Donald Trump and Melania Trump arriving at the White House shortly for a tea with the Bidens. That is what we are seeing next. You are watching history unfold this morning on Inauguration Day in America. It is 9:40 on the East Coast. Live breaking news as it happens when we return. We'll be right back right after this.
Homes.com is a new, elevated home shopping experience. Beautiful design, tremendously rich content, and my favorite touch, it's the only site that always connects you to the listing agent. Feels like a work of art.
Lovely. What about the app?
Uh-oh. Look what I did. It's ringing. Hello? Hello? Hello?
They can't hear you.
Hello?
Because you glued a frame over the microphone.
I think I've glued the frame over the microphone.
Ding dong.
Homes.com. We've done your homework.
We continue to monitor live pictures live at the Blair House right there on your screen this morning. We are standing by for the Trumps to make the trip over to the White House for a tea with the Bidens. About 10 minutes ago, we did see J.D. Vance and his wife go into the White House. They are currently with Kamala Harris and Doug Emhoff. So any moment now, we will see the Trumps make their way over to the White House, and we'll bring that to you live as we are monitoring live images across D.C. here on Inauguration Day leading up to the swearing-in ceremony at 12 noon, Jan.
Today, Trump expected to sign as many as 200 executive orders and has promised to make his first week back in on immigration, energy, and government hiring, including declaring a border emergency and designating cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, reversing Biden-era restrictions on energy production, and overhauling the federal workforce while ending DEI hiring practices.
We're inheriting a nation faced with crisis at home and abroad. It's been a long 4 years, nasty. It's been a nasty 4 years. My administration will take immediate and decisive action to confront every single problem America faces and put our nation back on the
TikTok from going dark over the weekend. The app went offline for about 12 hours, but is back up and running after Trump promised to save it.
And we're confident that we can save TikTok, but also protect Americans' data and protect them from influence, whether that's an outright sale, whether that's some mechanism of firewalls to make sure that the data is protected here on U.S. soil. That's what the president will be evaluating, and I'll certainly be helping from that from a national security standpoint.
The border crisis will also make up a majority of executive orders expected to be issued today. The national emergency will unlock additional Pentagon funding. The orders will require the U.S. military to work with the Department of Homeland Security to secure the border, including building more infrastructure there at the border, and plans to designate cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Incoming border czar Tom Homan says the Immigration and Customs Enforcement raids begin tomorrow to deport criminal migrants.
We got 24 field officers across the country. On Tuesday, you're going to expect ICE. ICE is finally going to go out and do their job. We're going to take the handcuffs off ICE and let them go arrest criminal aliens. That's what's going to happen.
The New York Times poll found 87% of Americans want to deport all illegal migrants who have criminal records, while 63% want to deport all illegal migrants who entered the U.S. under the Biden-Harris administration.
44 minutes past the hour right now here at the live desk. Two major events, of course, today. MLK Day is one holiday, and then Inauguration. A lot of places are closed. What's open and what's closed? Next. All right, live picture right now. This is outside, of course, the Capitol building. We've been watching live pictures. They've been on rotating inside the Capitol ahead of today's swearing-in ceremony. You see the helicopter right there, right in front of where many Americans have come to head into the visitor center and then visit the Capitol. That is where the swearing-in ceremony will happen. Also happening right now, J.D. Vance and his wife, they're at the White House, is talking with Kamala Harris and her husband, Doug Emhoff. And we're also monitoring Donald Trump Trump. He and Melania set to arrive at the White House shortly as well. They're doing a tea. They're having a tea this morning with the Bidens. So that's something to keep in mind as well. This morning, we'll bring you those live pictures as we continue to follow this breaking story. Meantime, Martin Luther King Day coincide with Inauguration Day. In fact, it's only the second time in history that it's happened. The first time was back in 1997 with Bill Clinton's second inauguration. The federal holiday is always the third Monday of January. Most non-essential government services like the DMV, libraries, city offices are closed today. In terms of money, the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ not trading today, and most banks are shut down. The United States Postal Service will also not be working, no delivery today. But not everything is closed. If you need something shipped out, FedEx, UPS will be operating as usual. Most retailers, restaurants, and grocery stores are open. The hours might be a little different given the holiday, Jen.
Mark, thank you. Today, we do celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Thousands will volunteer with various organizations and ruminate on King's mission of racial equality. The National News Desk's Janae Bowen spoke with King's niece and joins us now with a special reflection. I actually saw her this past weekend and got a chance to talk to her too, Janae.
Oh, I love that, Jan. So I had the chance to speak to Dr. Alveda King on the phone on what would have been her uncle's 96th birthday. Now, although his life was cut short too soon, it's safe to say her uncle's dedication to equality for all will never be forgotten.
With this being the inauguration of the President of the United States, as well as Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday celebration, it's a double time.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., her favorite quote.
When we won't exploit people.
Right.
We won't trample over people with iron feet of oppression. We won't kill anybody.
I love that. And so when you hear me say life from the womb to the tomb and beyond, it needs to be an excellent quality of life for every human being that God creates.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s efforts led to the passing of several laws, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which ended segregation in public places and banned discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. He received the Nobel Peace Prize for his nonviolent struggle for civil rights. And who could ever forget his I Have a Dream speech?
Because I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
So much progress has been made, and there's still room for even more.
I've been discriminated against many times in my lifetime, and it still goes on. But there again, I don't lose hope. I always take heart. I have faith, hope, and love, repentance, and forgiveness. I don't give up. And so discrimination still exists. Racism exists because people think we're separate races. We're one race, the human race. He would say we must learn to live together as brothers, and I'll add as sisters, perish together as fools.
Now today, in honor of her uncle, Dr. Alveda King is feeding people in need.
All right, also monitoring the White House, waiting for Donald Trump and Melania Trump. We can take this here. We did see J.D. Vance go inside with his wife, who met by Kamala Harris and Doug Emhoff. They're going to have a tea this morning, and they're going to have a bit of a conversation there. There we go. We can see exactly what we're watching this morning. So we'll keep this up just for a moment, see what we can see here at 51 minutes past the hour. We also, as we keep, this is the Capitol as this camera pulls back. So that's what we're seeing. We expect the Trumps to go to the White House for the meeting. Joe Biden, if we can pull this up, it was, what's that, Alana? Say that one more time. Okay, we're going to pull up a live camera from the Blair House, which is just a few blocks away, talking with my producer in the back. The Blair House is where we believe the Trumps are. They stayed there overnight. You see all those SUVs right there. So as soon as that begins, what we're going to watch for here is movement, and that's what we're seeing now. So what we expect any minute now, these SUVs set to leave. This aerial shot gives us a better idea. Inside that white tent, as they pull it back, that is where we expect Trump to get in. That waiting black SUV, and then all these vehicles will file out. Looks like they've got the brake lights on right now, so we'll keep this up. In the meantime, I did want to mention, I was talking about current President Joe Biden and Joe Biden. They posted a selfie just a moment ago, X account, and said one last selfie for the road. It was a photo of Mr. Biden. There it is right there. President Biden and Jill, the message, one more selfie for the road. We love you, America. That posted at 9:27, so a few minutes ago. We can go back to those live pictures this morning. Let's bring Jan's mic up if we can. Jan, we've been watching this all morning. It looks like the motorcade's on the way. I'd like to keep these pictures up. As it appears, we do know now that Mr. Trump and Melania are on the move. Jan, we saw the St. John's prayer service a short time ago. And Josh, tell me again exactly what you're saying? Okay. We're going to do just a quick break for just a moment. We will come back. When we come back, we will show you the live pictures at the arrival at the White House as the Trumps arrive to meet with the Bidens. They are moving in right now. We're back right after this. We're going. All right now
I'm meteorologist Ryan Munn. Let's get a look at the Northeast as we head through the daytime on Monday. That storm is moving out of here. The sunshine has returned. However, it is going to be very, very cold all throughout the Northeast as we head through the day on Monday. And this will continue not only into Monday, but Tuesday, even into the middle of the work week.
Live pictures of Donald Trump and Melania Trump arriving with the President, Joe Biden and Jill Biden. These are live pictures just arriving at the White House this morning as we monitor this breaking news on Inauguration Day. If you were with us about 30 minutes ago, you saw J.D. Vance arrive. Now Trump side by side with Joe Biden. They will walk inside. They're going to talk for a little bit this morning and be part of a tea service. They're going to have tea this morning, have a conversation. You're watching this unfold this morning on Inauguration Day. They spent the morning at a prayer service at St. John's Episcopal, which is across the street from the White House. They spent time at the Blair House this morning. That's where the Trumps stayed overnight. So after all of this wraps up, they will then head to the Capitol. Of course, the inauguration's not happening outside. It's happening in the Capitol Rotunda. Inside that rotunda, it's a small event, folks. It is under 750 people. So all of the other fans, the voters that wanted to see all of this play out, they are all going to be at Capital One Arena, and that's where Trump will go after the swearing in, afternoon, to meet those tens of thousands of loyal fans that made the trip to Washington, D.C. to watch this. You just watched Trump walk inside with President Joe Biden for one final act for the Bidens today, as we are seeing the power change here in the nation's capital this morning. For those who want to go to weather, we're going to say that again, Alana? All right. Let's stay with this. Jan, jump in right here.
It was from 2021 when we did this 4 years ago, because there was not sort of this peaceful transition of power. You'll recall it was after January 6th. It was after a lot of unrest here in the Capitol. It was also during a time of COVID. So there were still people wearing masks, and it was still a scaled down version. I will say this. There is a very different vibe here in D.C. than there was 4 years ago. In fact, that was the one thing that I noticed this past weekend. I saw security was much more heightened than I felt like it was than 4 years ago. I also felt like, when you look at this, this is not the typical picture we're used to seeing on Inauguration Day. We're used to seeing hundreds of thousands of people fill the Washington Mall, something that we're not seeing. And as you said, Mark, they're going to be filling the Capitol One Arena, which is quite a few miles away from here. But there were so many people who came to see Trump in this address and see him speak. Because again, one of the biggest things people come for is to hear his address. And that's something they're not going to be able to see in person.
And Jan, we're going to continue with our breaking news coverage at the top of the hour. We have to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this.
The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected. In hours, Donald J. Trump will be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States.
Hello, America. We're all over America. I'm thrilled to be back.
With the votes of millions and the hopes of millions more.
With so many friends, supporters, and true American patriots on the eve of taking back our country.
To fulfill a promise to make America great again.
The curtain closes on 4 long years of American decline, and we begin a brand new day of American strength and prosperity, dignity, and pride.
President Trump returns to the White House as the dawn of a new day begins in America.
And we are going to make America great again.
The National News Desk is America's news now.
Breaking right now, Donald J. Trump, 2 hours away from being sworn in as the 47th President of the United States, marking an unprecedented comeback in U.S. politics with Trump's promise of a new golden age for America. And we're coming to you live from the nation's capital. This is the National News Desk, America's news now. I'm Jan Jeffcoat. It's Monday, January 20th, and as we get ready to welcome a new president, we also honor the memory and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the day highlighting the civil rights movement and freedom for all Americans. And as we take a live look over the Capitol right now, where Donald Trump will be sworn in at noon Eastern, he promises his new administration will restore Americans' faith that their institutions work to uphold those time-tested and fundamental U.S. principles. Trump's unity and how to make the lives of all Americans better.
Starting tomorrow, I will act with historic speed and strength and fix every single crisis facing our country. We have to do it.
We do have live team coverage from Washington, D.C. all morning, and we start with Mark Boyle at the live desk. Good morning to you, Mark.
Jan, good morning to you. It has been a busy morning here at the live desk. Live picture outside the White House. Inside right now, J.D. Vance, as well as Donald Trump and their wives. They are having tea with the president and vice president. It is the last move for the Bidens and Kamala Harris, of course, before moving out. Things change at noon today. And behind me, what you're looking at, this is what the crowded scene looked like outside of Capitol One Arena here in downtown Washington, D.C., just a few blocks away from the White House. All of these people snaking their way through the lines. And I just checked with somebody who's out there right now at Capitol One. They are still in line trying to get inside to watch the inauguration. And then this is where Trump will go to meet his loyal fans. Many of these folks had tickets to be outside for the swearing in. Of course, it didn't happen outside. The swearing will happen inside that rotunda. And here's where things go from here. This is the schedule of events today. We are right here, the tea at the White House. We've already had the opening gates this morning, the prayer service at St. John's. We showed you that live as it happened. The tea service underway. Less than 2 hours from now is when the swearing in ceremony will happen. Around 11 o'clock is when we'll see some of the concert items begin. That's what they're calling it, the songs and the pomp and circumstance leading up to the moment when Donald Trump takes office and has that inauguration officially happen. This year's parade moved inside the Capitol One Arena. It can seat about 20,000 people. Many of those will not get inside. Originally, 7,500 people were set to participate for a reason. We'll see about that. One of the other many groups that we'll see today, police, EMTs, Comparatore, the volunteer firefighter who was at the rally in Butler. He was shot and killed. He was with his family at the time. We're monitoring these live developments as they break this morning at the live desk here on Inauguration Day in our nation's capital.
And despite the weather, hundreds of thousands are still gathering here in Washington, D.C. And the national news desk's Kayla Gaskins continues our live team coverage from Capitol Hill. The vibe very different, as we know, especially in those below freezing temperatures and all those festivities being moved indoors. A very surreal scene there behind you to be so empty, Kayla.
It is, Jan, and I heard you talking a little bit ago about how different this feeling is in 2025 versus 2021. Not only just the mood of the country, but also just the actual atmosphere here in Washington, D.C. And a lot of that has to do with the weather. Typically at this point in the morning, we're a little less than 2 hours away from when Donald Trump will be sworn in as the next president of the United States. Typically, right now, the National Mall would be for the next president, making cheers and dancing, and there would be music. Very quiet right now. I don't know if you can see, but we have a view of the stage here, all set up and ready to go in rows and rows and rows of chairs. All of that will remain empty because those ceremonies are taking place inside the Capitol Rotunda instead. Not a lot of people can fit in there compared to hundreds of thousands that wanted to come here and watch the swearing in person. The Capitol Rotunda can only hold about 600 or 700 people. So that's all that will be able to go on in there. This is a very exclusive list. We'll have Supreme Court justices, top lawmakers from both parties, as well as former presidents. So Obama and Clinton are set to come. So is Joe Biden and Jill Biden. Notably absent from today's list will be Vice President of China made the list. And so did some special guests of the next president. That includes Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and the CEO of TikTok. TikTok making a lot of news here in the U.S., and it's actually one of the first problems that Donald Trump says he will tackle today after he is sworn in. Directly after that swearing-in ceremony, Donald Trump will give his inaugural address from in. We will be watching it on TV with the rest of America. These speeches, very important because they set the tone for the next 4 years. Live on Capitol Hill.
Talked about the executive orders, promises made, promises kept, some 200 executive orders plan to be signed today. The border crisis will make up a majority of those executive orders. The national emergency will unlock additional Pentagon funding if he does the border here. The orders will require the U.S. military to work with the Department of Homeland Security to secure the border, including building more infrastructure at the border, plus relaunching the Remain in Mexico policy and plans to designate cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Incoming border czar Tom Homan says the Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
We got 24 field officers across the country. On Tuesday, you're going to expect ICE. ICE is finally going to go out and do their job. We're going to take the handcuffs off ICE and let them go arrest criminal aliens. That's what's going to happen.
And joining us now with more on Trump's expected executive action on the border is President of the Government Accountability Office, Peter Schweizer, as well as strategist and pollster Justin Wallen. Great to have you both here. I want to first talk about what a New York Times poll found, Justin. Americans want to deport all illegal migrants who have criminal records. 63% want to deport all illegal migrants who entered the U.S. under the Biden-Harris administration. Is this surprising to you? Are these numbers where yours line up?
Yeah, and what's amazing about it is the size, right? You can't get numbers like that without deep agreement across political party alignment. Americans largely see the border as broken. They do want it fixed. There is variation and nuance depending on children of folks who have come over and so forth. But in these areas, it's pretty stark, especially with those who are here undocumented. They do have criminal records. There's really not a lot of appetite for amnesty.
Peter, he's going to declare a national border emergency and essentially direct the military to work with the Department of Homeland Security. How challenging will this be for him to be able to do this? And also the challenges he will face from these sanctuary states and sanctuary cities who say they're not going to abide by some of these executive orders.
Yeah, it's easier said than done. I think he's going to have success in this area, but the bottom line is there's going to be resistance within the federal bureaucracy, what some people call the deep state. There's certainly going to be court challenges filed probably in liberal jurisdictions. You've got some governors and local officials who say they don't want to cooperate. Well, let's remember, when it comes to immigration and the border, the federal law reigns supreme. So this is going to be kind of trench warfare in terms of the bureaucracy, I think, going on for several years.
Justin, I have to imagine, I mean, you're from Southern California. I have to imagine their policy construct a new area of the border wall. He wants to end catch and release. What has been the overall overarching theme there in Southern California, and how are residents there? How are they right now taking in Trump, taking in the new administration?
Yeah, California in many ways reflects the United States. I mean, yes, it's a very blue state, but there have been dramatic changes in demographic support for Trump specifically, for issues that Trump ran on and is now implementing. I think one of the most interesting blocks that you can look at and highlight that really illustrate this is the Latino voting population. And in California, no different really. Where in America, I would just spotlight that nationwide, President Obama won 71% of Latinos some time ago. And in this election, Biden captured 59%. It's a huge delta. We see that in California, and we see voters and California voters in this blue state thirsting for pragmatic changes that adjust systems that they see as broken, such as the border, and things that they feel pain with every day, such as high cost of living.
Peter, we are looking right now at the Capitol Rotunda as some of the officials around the country enter right now. Again, this is going to be, we talked about the limited amount of seating that will be happening during this particular inaugural ceremony, the swearing in and the address that Trump's going to make. Several of the international leaders that are coming in, Peter, are from China and also from Argentina. And really and truly, this is unprecedented. We have never seen international leaders on the stage with the president as he is sworn.
Yeah, you make a great point, Jan. Look, it's interesting. If you look at the leader of Argentina or the prime minister of Italy who are in attendance, these are really Trump allies. These are people that support his agenda and are carrying out some of the same policies that he wants to pursue here in their own countries. Then you have China, which is a rival, some would say an adversary, that is quite different. Trump always likes a highly personalized form of diplomacy, and that can work very, very effectively. I think as long as you realize that, it's not like a business deal. A lot of time with a business deal, both people are at the table negotiating, say, the sale of a piece of real estate because they both want the transaction to take place. That is not always the case in international diplomacy. The big question with China is always going to be, are they prepared to actually honor commitments that they made? We know the crackdown on fentanyl to President Trump, they didn't do that. So I'm skeptical that we will actually get something beneficial from China, but it's certainly worth having them here and having that discussion.
Yeah, and you can see the heavy security, the heavy presence right now of detail as some of these dignitaries, some of these officials and lawmakers are walking into the Capitol Rotunda building right now as we speak. Earlier, Marco Rubio, of course, cabinet picks that Trump has that he really needs to get through as fast as possible. How important is this, Peter, for Trump to get his nominations through, and what challenges do you see?
Well, I think, yeah, every president wants to hit the ground running. It's going to be crucial. He's got a majority in the Senate, so it should happen. I think that by and large, when you're talking about Pam Bondi or Marco Rubio, they should not have any problem. Tulsi Gabbard may run into some problems, but I think at the end of the day, a president generally should get the cabinet that they want. And the picks that he is now putting forward, I think, are quite good. It's important, particularly, again, when you have a president who is an agent of change, who has criticized the bureaucracy, the so-called deep state, to get leadership in that he can work to implement his agenda from day one, because that honeymoon period, it only lasts a certain amount of time. You've got your base of supporters, but people who maybe didn't vote for you or who didn't vote at all, they're a little bit less patient. You want to keep them on your side and move quickly. All
right, Mark, I want to bring you in right now as we see some of these senators coming in so you can describe what we're seeing and look at these live pictures. I want Justin also and Peter to stick around if they can as we continue this conversation. Mark?
Yeah, we are monitoring all of these different dignitaries. You talked about those cabinet selections, the ones that are going through these hearings right now, Jan. And on the top right of your screen, if you're just joining us, this is inside the Capitol Rotunda. Very limited seating there, about 750 or so. We saw Kristi Noem, Marco Rubio, Scott Bessent came in as well. And they're filing in ahead of when the swearing-in ceremony will be. That's right around noon. But the whole event today will kick off just around 11 o'clock or so. But if you're wondering where Trump is, if you're just joining us right now, Trump and Vance both not too far away down the street at the White House. They're having tea with the Bidens in the final act there. And then we are monitoring when Biden and Trump will depart the White House to make that very quick journey over to the Capitol Rotunda as we watch these live pictures this morning. And then Kevin McCarthy right there, live pictures this morning.
And earlier we were looking at, and look, this is Boehner, who's from Ohio, former senator, and I mean, former House congressman. Earlier we were looking at Mitch McConnell, Senator Mitch McConnell, who, as we know, is now stepping down, and we have a new Senate Majority Leader of the Senate there. And I think it's very important as we watch this that we see this is not just current leadership, this is past leadership too.
It's past leadership, and something of note, as you mentioned, Jan, we were talking about this earlier, around D.C., they have this riot fencing all over D.C., but the number of protesters just is not there. It is a very different feel this inauguration than it was last inauguration. It has been a very peaceful weekend here in Washington, D.C. If you don't live here, if you're not familiar with it, you may not have even seen it on other coverage. It has been quiet. There have been a few marches here or there, but it is a much different story as we're watching this transfer of power happening this morning.
It's interesting. We're seeing two former House speakers here. We're seeing Newt Gingrich as well as John Boehner. And it's the changing of the guard is always interesting. And what I find to be remarkable about this, because I've never seen this done indoors. Again, it hasn't been since Reagan's second term that we have seen an inaugural ceremony indoors, that we can see the pictures a little bit more clearly, because typically they're bundled up. They are clearly, and now we have, look, Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos in the center, and Mark Zuckerberg on the left side of the screen there.
Yep. So now we're seeing some of the, again, not a whole lot of people invited to be inside the rotunda, but we have heard they will be sitting there right next to Trump, not just Bezos and...
It's just 750 people. It's a very small number, Jan.
Zuckerberg, Bezos, as well as Elon Musk, all plan to be there, and the founder of TikTok. I'm just curious, Justin, what do you make about this, especially being from, there in California, near Silicon Valley, where we know tech capital of the country, and seeing some of these tech guys now who were really under fire for their censorship and now, kind of rubbing elbows with the president.
Yeah, I think it reflects that the president certainly is open to discussions, but I also think that this is no clear and free ride for tech. I think there's, within the administration, there's an acute awareness that a number of these organizations and their leaders presented themselves as the arbiters of truth, and that is not something that Trump has an affinity for. These
well,
leaders
censorship, freedom of speech. I mean, that's been his theme from the very get-go when it comes to tech, and the mass exodus out of California, especially in the tech industry. We know Elon Musk has pulled out. He pulled X out. He went to Texas. How has this hurt the state when it comes to not just jobs and the economy, but just the workers who don't want to be there anymore because they can't afford it or because they don't believe in some of the policies of Governor Gavin Newsom?
Significantly, you know, I mean, that's my job. I talk to people, and I do a lot of work in California, and I think one of the biggest things that we find is those things that we take for granted, the American dream of owning a house, that's out of reach and frankly out of consideration. It's not even considered by many people who would, you know, on the natural, you would think this would be part of their life course. These are owners of small businesses, these are employees of government or, you know, Fortune 250 companies or 500 companies. The state is so extraordinarily complex to live in and so expensive that we're, as a state, are losing a lot of people who are productive, who are useful to the states as an economic powerhouse. And frankly, unfortunately, the state is contributing to a general malaise among those folks. You should be able to pursue a good life. You should be able to own a home.
Yeah. Peter, do you think we're going to of political preference, of perhaps what we've seen as a very, very, very blue state? Now we're starting to see some folks who are very upset, obviously with the wildfires, obviously with current leadership, and they're starting to, there's a little bit of a change. What's your thoughts on this?
I think there is going to be more of an appetite for different leadership. It's not to say that California is going to turn red. I don't. Or for different agendas and different policy items.
Peter, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I would share that opinion. I don't think we're going to see a dramatic change, in part because a lot of people are frankly voting with their feet. They're leaving California, they're leaving Washington State. And I think to sort of piggyback on the earlier comment, I think the thing we have to understand about big tech is that there are certainly industry concerns that Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos will have, but they also have very specific core Trump has pushed for, and certainly a lot of the tech people around him have pushed for, is to encourage more market competition in big tech. In the area of AI, in terms of social media, you've got this weird dynamic. I certainly believe we need to do something about TikTok. It is a national security concern. But then you've got a guy like Mark Zuckerberg. He would love to see TikTok banned. Why? Because it would benefit his social media companies. So a lot of complicated dynamics that are sitting in that crowd with him.
Joining us, stay with us for live continuing coverage of the presidential inauguration. We're going to be right back.
I'm meteorologist Ryan Munn. Let's get a look at the Northeast as we head through the daytime on Monday. That storm is moving out of here. The sunshine has returned. However, it is going to be very, very cold all throughout the Northeast as we head through the day on Monday. And this will continue not only into Monday, but Tuesday, even into the middle of the work week as well. We are talking temperatures that are going to be very, very cold throughout the region, but mainly dry. High temperatures today topping out in the teens to near 20.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Bailey. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. We are now drying out, but a very Arctic air mass is setting in. This is going to be brutally cold over the next few days. High pressure is going to push overhead, so we're going to stay mostly dry, except for maybe some light snow showers across the mountains. So going into your Monday, it's extremely cold. We're talking about single digits in the mountains, teens down closer towards the low.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs for the day. Chilly temperatures. Look at Nashville, only 23 degrees. 32 Birmingham, 35 Raleigh, looking at 47 Jacksonville, Tampa, about 55 degrees. We have a big system that's going to be moving this direction across the southeast. Right now, we're looking dry, but that core of cold air is in place. Out of Texas, we're going to have this storm that's going to be moving across Louisiana and Mississippi and the deep south, giving many areas several inches of snow through the middle of the week.
Good Monday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buckmichael. Look at these temperatures through the day today. International Falls struggling to even get to maybe 15 below zero. It's going to be such a cold day across the Midwest for the day today. Not much in the way of any snow unless you're talking about lake effect snow, and pretty quiet again for Tuesday, and also a little warmer for some of us, and some light snow moving in Wednesday.
Good Monday morning. I'm meteorologist Joe DiCarlo. Looked at your forecast across the region and a lot going on, a lot of colors here. We do have a winter weather advisory, winter storm warning along the Gulf Coast, and cold weather alerts to the north. So here comes the winter storm in the days ahead, increasing some rain near Corpus Christi, ice by the evening around San Antonio, and we will have some snow on Tuesday.
Good Monday morning. I'm meteorologist Stella Sun. We've got a dip in the jet stream, and that is pooling in some of that cold Arctic air. So temperatures later today, double ones in Denver, 6 degrees in Jackson, Wyoming, 15 in Missoula. Across the West Coast, in the 60s in San Francisco, Los Angeles, where we're concerned with some of those Santa Ana winds picking up. In Seattle, a mix of the sun and the clouds, 41 degrees. That's the scene from here.
The National News Desk. Locally covered, nationally connected.
Today, Donald J. Trump will be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States, as hundreds of thousands of Americans are in D.C. right now, making history.
Live of Jill Biden and Melania Trump walking into that limousine, expected expecting to see Biden and Trump any minute now.
Yeah, this is something that is, as you had said earlier, this is a historic day. Right now, Trump's team ready at work. They are getting ready to sign hundreds of executive orders aimed at putting America first. At the same time, Biden on his way out the door, also making history himself, setting a record number of pardons and clemency as well. In fact, more than 8,000, correct? Is that right, Mark?
It's just over 8,000. And if you didn't hear this morning, he pardoned Anthony Fauci.
Dr. Anthony Fauci. And there is a massive uproar as a result of that. And we're going to talk more about that coming up. In the meantime, thanks for joining us here on the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Jan Jeffcoat. It's Monday, January 20th, and in just a few hours, Trump will be president again. The inauguration taking place at noon Eastern at the Capitol Rotunda right here inside this building. It was moved inside, and we've got live coverage all morning of every moment leading up to Trump, again, taking the oath. Kayla Gaskins is in Washington with more on that in a moment. First, though, Mark Boyle at the live desk watching all of the live feeds for us this morning. Wait for Trump.
Yeah, it's an exciting morning. We're going to keep this live picture up. So that second limousine just pulled up. We are waiting for Biden and Trump to walk out. This is at the White House. Just around the corner, down the block, that is where a lot of people are waiting, about 750 people inside the Capitol Rotunda. We've been seeing dignitaries. Vivek Ramaswamy is there. We've seen many of the nominees for Trump's cabinet already arriving as well. Kristi Noem, Marco Rubio is there. Pam Bondi, of course, from Florida, already walked inside the Rotunda, so they're waiting. And in terms of the schedule, J.D. Vance and then Trump will be sworn into office. All of that is supposed to happen in the 11 o'clock hour. And then right down the hall from all of this, National Mall, that is where tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people were set to watch all of this unfold, Jan. But of course, they're at the Capital One Arena. And I was just talking with someone who's there. There is still a line right now at the Capital One Arena, people trying to get inside.
So it looks like they're about to come out right now. By the way, there are 200,000 people that want to get inside Capital One Arena for 20,000 seats. 20,000 seats. And right now you can see, it looks like
Kamala Harris and
J.D. Vance and Kamala Harris. And my goodness, this was such an awkward situation too, because for the first time, typically the vice president will invite the president-elect into the House there and sort of give them a tour, right? That didn't happen for J.D. Vance.
Did not give him a tour of the vice president's
where he's going to be living
residence.
Yeah.
So there's a big change that's going on, and a lot of people are saying this is a big change for J.D. Vance moving to Washington, D.C., right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot going to happen today, and then you have this big transition of power. Clearly a peaceful one, though. You are seeing the Bidens and the Trumps work together here, and Vance and Kamala Harris walk away. A very contentious election cycle that we were covering for more than a year, and we'll watch this motorcade again pull up. But the protest situation, I want to bring that back, though. It's important. We have not seen significant, major destructive protests across D.C. We know thousands of additional police officers have been brought into town to make sure things stay peaceful as we're watching this unfold, Jen.
It was a very different vibe than what we saw 4 years ago, than what we saw 8 years ago. There is a little bit more hope, and I think not just from the GOP, but also from the Democrats. In fact, I think it was Bernie Sanders, right, that wrote an op-ed and said that he looked forward to working with Trump. Are we, Mark, at this point, are we waiting for the president to come out with the president-elect?
Are we with the stage? It's so unique seeing this. Obviously, this plays out just once every 4 years or 8 years, but in terms of this changing of power, the transition of power. But over at the Capitol, Marine One, the helicopters there, we are going to see all of this play out. And I want to stay with this picture, though, because this is the story of the day. This is the ceremony. The Bidens welcomed the Trumps and the Vances inside. And again, you have to remember, the Bidens made some news this morning with this major pardon of Anthony Fauci. That dropped just before we went on the air at 6 o'clock this morning, right in the 6 o'clock hour, in addition to a general and then those on the committee investigating January 6th. So wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall in that tea this morning?
He made the pardon for Senator Marco Rubio. He made the pardon,
Mark Milley.
For General Mark Milley. And Senator Rand Paul actually posted this very recently on X. He said, if there was ever any doubt as to who bears responsibility for the COVID pandemic, Biden's pardon of Fauci forever seals the deal. As chairman of this entire truth of the cover-up is exposed. He wrote, Fauci's pardon will only serve as an accelerant to pierce the veil of deception. This is, and he actually says, Fauci, he wrote this, Fauci will go down in history as the first government scientist to be preemptively pardoned for a crime. And right now the GOP is flaming mad about this. They're still going to continue with their investigation. But again, he was never under indictment. He was never charged. This was a preemptive pardon. Preemptive pardon.
Not just him. I mean, you talk about this GOP. One of the head of the GOP there, Rick Scott. We're going to keep these double boxes up on the left side, the White House, the right side, the Rotunda, to keep you up to date with what we're watching. We're waiting for Trump and Biden to walk out on the left. Rick Scott, Republican from Florida, posting Biden pardoning Anthony Fauci in his final hours. He says this is a slap in the face to the millions of Americans he lied to, those who lost their job, their small business, and so much more because of him. Thank God President Trump is just hours away from being our president. He will bring accountability and transparency back to our government.
Yeah, I hear.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
So right now we have Steve Moore. He is the former White House economic advisor and also advising Trump during this term also. He's considered one of the top economists in the country, and I know very influential with the Trump administration. And as we watched Donald Trump and Joe Biden walk out, I want to talk to Steve. Steve, look at this moment. I know earlier you were saying that you got chills when you watched this.
Yeah, what an amazing moment. Really, it is. It just makes you feel proud to be an American. This kind of peaceful transfer of power. Yeah. I would have loved, I said earlier on your show, I'd have loved to have been a fly in the wall in that meeting to see what the two presidents said to each other. They've been, adversarial. But I think it was, I'm sure they had a good discussion. And look, Trump is going to start in a couple of hours. We're going to start to see this flurry of executive orders that will sort of change the direction of policy in a big way, Jan. And so this is a very consequential day for the United States of America.
You had Senator Rand Paul as part of your panel yesterday. I just read one of his posts on X. He was right on it when it came to this pardon for Dr. Anthony Fauci. I don't know if you heard what I just said, what he wrote on X when he heard about the pardon. Again, a preemptive pardon because Fauci has not been charged or indicted. So he said this is not going to stop. And in fact, he said he's not going to arrest, he wrote, until, quote, the truth of the cover-up is exposed. He says this will only serve as an accelerant to pierce the veil of deception. So that's one of the things I know that both the Senate and House will be working on to figure out how something like this could have happened, because you don't want it to happen again. So an investigation certainly is warranted in this situation. When you had on Senator Rand Paul, you also had on Senator Ron Johnson. And were you surprised to see the future Treasury Secretary there? Because Scott Bessent, he got a standing ovation when he came into the room yesterday during your meeting.
Well, let me just say something about this Anthony Fauci pardon, because this is fairly unprecedented to pardon someone who hasn't actually been convicted of a crime. But I do think, and I've talked to some senators in the last 24 hours, that there will be an investigation one way or the other. And I don't know if he could actually be put on trial and then be pardoned for it. But I will tell you this, there were two things that Anthony Fauci did that I think are unforgivable. One is that he was the lead advocate for things like the other thing, don't forget, Jan, he lied about the whole lab, funding the lab in China. And we know he lied about it to Congress, and that is a felony.
We lost almost a generation, they say, of American school kids as a result of some of these lockdowns. And we're seeing that now with testing scores. We're seeing that now with parental rights. Certainly that was on the ballot as well. School choice. That was one of the things that I recall from your meeting yesterday. There were three things, right? Three things that we need for a great economy: free trade, stable prices, school choice. I took notes.
I want to make one quick note about Trump's speech that he's going to be giving in about an hour or so, if I could, Jan. Yeah. Because I think it's going to be a really important speech. And, inaugural speeches have tended to be highly consequential over the years, going back to Abraham Lincoln and even unite the country, remember?
I do.
But there wasn't much that he actually did to unite the country. He moved, and I think it'll go down in history as a great mistake. He had a chance to unite the country. Instead, he moved way to the left, 8 years ago. I thought it was a little dark and a little divisive. I hope that this speech is about bringing all the country together on the things that unify us. So we do want a strong economy. We do want a strong defense. We do want to fight against China when they are a threat to our security. Those kinds of things. And we do want to have a new patriotism in this country. So I'm very hopeful it's a speech that tries to bring Democrats and independents into this movement to make America great again.
Steve, you know Trump on a personal level. Tell us more about the man. Why do you support him? Why do you continue to support him?
You talking about Trump?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but you know why? Because I think he has great instincts. He's a businessman. I think one of the thing that makes Donald Trump a rare president is that he has worked in business. He knows how to employ people, meet a payroll, what it is to make an institution work. And most of the people you're looking at on that screen are politicians. Donald Trump is not a professional politician. He's a businessman. He knows how to make things work. And that, to me, is very exciting. I've had arguments with Donald Trump over the years, and one thing I respect about him is he and I can argue about things, and you can voice your opinion. Of course, he's the chief executive. He'll make the decision. But I think that's something that I find, and also I always believed, even when I disagreed with Donald Trump on a policy, and as I said, sometimes I'd argue with him on it.
Yeah.
I always felt like in his own mind, he believed things that were in America's interest, and that's what every president should do.
It's so interesting. I have learned that with CEOs, two of their traits, their greatest traits are being fearless and being forgiving. And when you think about the fact that Joe Biden and Donald Trump right now are in this car and they are going to the Capitol, and to know that this is also the same man who raided your home in Mar-a-Lago, this same man you accused of weaponizing the government against you and your family, and then to be able to peacefully go into this car. It's really remarkable, as you said, to go into this, be in this together and go to the Capitol and see this transfer of power peacefully. And it really does, as you said, make you really proud to be an American.
This is one of those iconic moments that we celebrate every 4 years in this country. We are a democracy. We're a representative form of government. Trump now has an opportunity. One of the things you were talking about earlier on the show when I was watching was you were talking about how young people tend to be very hopeful about Trump. And that's a cool thing. I mean, here's Trump. He's kind of an old man, but he's got the support of young people who want better schools, better opportunities. They want jobs. So he's coming here's the thing. He's coming into office with a great deal of his approval rating today, Jan, is higher than it has ever been in the last 8 years. So Americans really want this president to succeed. We need this president to succeed, and he'll be hitting the ground running. You can tell I'm very excited. I got goosebumps here. I feel.
Right, and I want to go back to what you just said about this is from CBS. The CBS News survey found young voters. This is unprecedented. This is young voters are the group most excited about Trump's return to the White House.
Amazing.
And we're talking about we're talking about, millennials and Gen Zers and those who didn't remember him back in 2017 and didn't witness what you and I witnessed back in 2017.
Wow.
In fact, 67% of 18 to 29-year-olds are optimistic now that Trump is in office. And what does that say for the generation after you and I?
Was also very popular with Latino voters, and Republicans historically have not done well with Latino voters. So it's a kind of new Republican Party. It's a working class party. But now I remember when George H.W. Bush came in with 80% approval rating, but he didn't succeed as a president, and he was thrown out of office.
But why was that?
Fleeting.
Why was that? Because he said, "Mark my words, I will not raise your taxes."
Read my lips.
Yeah, read my lips. There you go. Yeah, about taxes.
But that's right. But my point, Jan, is that you've got the public behind you, but you got to do the things that work for America, that create jobs. I think one reason young people are so supportive of Trump right now is, look, what are young about? They care about getting a good job. They care about climbing the economic ladder. They care about the security of the country. And so those are things that Trump will
also,
have to
we can't discount
deliver on.
We can't discount some of the social issues that they've also talked about that they care about. There are a lot of women, young women, who do not believe biological boys should be playing in girls' sports. And that was certainly on the agenda as well. Mark, I want to bring you in right now as we look at some of these live pictures.
Well, what he's about to walk into, Trump and Biden, Steve and Jan, they're walking into both sides of the aisle inside that rotunda, and they're all close. Instead of looking out on the National Mall at tens of thousands of supporters, Trump is going to be looking within just feet of Republicans and Democrats that made the list, just about 700 to 750 people inside that Capitol Rotunda as they are just now a few seconds away from arriving. This is not a far journey from the White House to the Capitol that we're going to see all of this play out, and it's going to happen right around 11 o'clock when they arrive, go inside there, and then the swearing-in ceremony will be at noon. Also, one last mention here. I do want to tell you, over at the Capital One Arena, there's been some photos coming in on social media I've been monitoring over here. It's expected that Trump might do some executive order signing in front of his supporters, those who have been there at Capital One Arena as we're watching them arrive here on this historic day, Jan.
Mark, I was actually in the city last night. I went to a couple of events, and I just had to tell you, you don't see anyone here in the city, and that's because I almost got stuck here because they closed. At one point, they had some of the National Guard closing off a huge sector of the city, and they were not letting anybody in or out unless you had a special badge.
I was having dinner with some friends close to the White House, and I was getting in my car, and some lady comes up. She goes, "Are you a Lyft or an Uber driver?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." Actually.
You can't find one.
I gotta go to bed. She goes, "I'll offer you $1,000. I can't get a Lyft or an Uber because there were so many Humvees. There were all those fencing, and you didn't see the protest, but you certainly saw that security. It is up right now. This city is locked down, and we did not see much of that pushback at all last night."
Yeah, and the thing is when you think about the vibe for some of these inaugurations, there's usually a lot of pomp and circumstance. There's usually parades. There's usually a ton of people that are on. They're lining the streets as the president's motorcade is driving down, and they're waving their American flags. And you're not seeing this right now, so there's a very different vibe. But it's also as much we do feel the hope in the air, but there's also it's a very tense situation still. I mean, we were talking about we were remiss if we don't talk about the fact this is a president who did survive two assassination attempts.
And we want to bring in Joy right now. Joy is at the Capital One Arena. Joy, talk about what you're seeing. Are people still able to get inside this arena, or is it at capacity this morning?
Yeah, people are still able to get inside the arena, and you can tell just how excited they are that they're making it inside, because once in a while we'll hear people start to cheer. This group you're seeing right here, they said they didn't start lining up until 6:30 this morning. And to give you context about just how early people started showing up here, when we got here, we're already lined up. The man at the front of that line showed up at 6:30 the night before. He was inside the Capital One Arena after the previous event with the president-elect, and then he got right back in line.
No sleep for him.
So a lot of people out here this morning genuinely just excited to be able to get inside. I mean, we're talking about 20,000 people for the capacity at Capital One Arena, and 200,000 we're hoping to see this happen on the National Mall.
Joy, I think it's remarkable what's happening there beside you, and that is people who are leaving their bags because they want to be able to get a chance to go in, and I know they're not allowing bags in, so you can see people just dump their bags right there. But I think it's interesting that you are covering a story about these, the Trump supporters, and not a story about protests, because typically during inaugurations, there's always at least one major protest somewhere, and this is on both sides of the aisle, no matter who is being inaugurated, and that's not something that we're seeing here in the D.C. area right now.
We did see one person kind of with a bullhorn shouting, talking to the crowd for a